Thank you for joining us today. If you are not an ATA member, please consider joining at https://atalink.org/become a member. Welcome to Seminar 7, Mobility Guardian 2021, Lighter, Leaner, Meaner. We hope you enjoy this presentation. The views expressed in this presentation are those of the speaker and do not reflect the official policy or position of the United States Air Force, the Department of Defense, the United States government, or the Airlift Tanker Association.
Hello, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Brian Thomason, the Deputy Chief for AMC's Command Exercise Division and the Exercise Director for Mobility Guardian 2021. I'm joined today by Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Hilferty, the Chief of Future Capabilities Development from AMC A8X. Thanks for tuning in. Mobility Guardian is AMC's flagship training exercise, providing realistic scenario-based training for all of AMC's mission sets. The exercise evolved out of the well-known AMC Rodeo, a competition-style family of exercises that ran from 1962 to 2011. Rodeo sharpened the skills of individual airmen and their small teams while building relationships with international partners and showcasing AMC's capabilities to the world. Rodeo was what AMC needed at the time. However, as the command and the nation shifted their focus to the challenges posed by near-peer and peer-level adversaries in a dynamic global environment, AMC leaders realized that something needed to change. It became obvious that we needed to train to an increasingly complex world and provide the right training venue for our airmen. Mobility Guardian was born out of that realization. Slide, please. Mobility Guardian 21 will be the third iteration of this new exercise, scheduled for May of 2021. Like MG-17 and MG-19, Mobility Guardian 21 will evaluate enterprise-level readiness and validate current capabilities ranging from the tactical to the operational level. However, unlike those two previous versions, MG-21 is going to be lighter, leaner, and meaner. The previous two versions of the exercise were large, internationally attended exercises with a focus on building partnership capability and a heavy focus on the global air mobility support system. While yielding significant benefit in terms of these focus areas, there were limitations imposed by both the scale and the types of participants involved. MG-21 consequently shifts the focus to things not possible within those previous exercises. Slide. Planning for MG-21 is conceptually oriented on the MAF's role in the joint fight within a non-permissive operational environment. Like previous years, MG-21 will test the full range of mobility readiness capabilities, not just for today's steady-state operations, but also for tomorrow's all-domain high-end fight. The exercise will focus on several overarching focus areas: airbase opening, agile combat employment, distributed mission planning and integration with CAF and joint forces, joint all-domain command and control, and mission command TTPs in a contested, degraded, and operationally limited environment. Slide. Framed within an era of enduring great power competition, MG-21 will test not only existing mission sets, but will develop and instill new tactics, techniques, and procedures. We'll accomplish this through large-scale, integrated, rapid global mobility operations and training opportunities that are not normally available at the wing and smaller unit level. This robust, scenario-based training will allow the command to validate core capabilities across the full spectrum of warfare, focusing efforts on enterprise-level Air Force priorities in alignment with the Chief of Staff's exercise policy released earlier this month and with enduring combatant commander requirements. Slide. Scaling the exercise down to approximately 1,500 U.S.-only participants will allow the focus on these key elements, while still including all of the major mission sets from across AMC, along with Guard, Reserve, CAF, and Joint Team members. Moving forward, the command will have the option of alternating between the smaller U.S.-only version of Mobility Guardian and the larger internationally attended version of the exercise, taking advantage of the unique benefits that each flavor of the exercise brings to our training portfolio. This year, however, matching AMC's skill sets with the focused inclusion of A-10s, F-35s, F-16s, HIMARS, SEALs, and Red and Blue Cyber, to name a few examples, will provide training to high-end TTPs that were difficult to incorporate during previous years. In addition to a change in size from previous years, MG-21 will push our participants in ways that they're not accustomed to being tested. MG-21, as in the past, will have capable adversary elements in order to fight back, uncover weaknesses, and show our blue team participants where they need to grow. Slide, please. But beyond just being attacked in the same ways, our goal is to create a scenario that will require innovation and experimentation in order to succeed, and the freedom to fail in a way that promotes learning, improvement, and growth. Every member of the Blue Team will have the opportunity to participate in a cohesive, connected set of tasks that will progress in difficulty through the course of the exercise. Starting out with a full day of academics and instruction in new topics, the exercise will then move into an iterative, 3-phase conflict comprised of 2 days per phase with 2 vulnerability periods per day. The 2 vols will repeat, allowing different teams to encounter the same complex problem sets, learn, and then try out new ideas and lessons the subsequent day. Additionally, our planners have been challenged to not just try out intellectually and doctrinally safe ideas that will be easily solved by exercise participants. Instead, they're working to accelerate change, using the safe environment of an exercise to fail forward when necessary, rather than waiting to face a true threat for the first time in combat. This may mean sortie cancellation and unmet tactical goals in training, so that we're ready for the adversary who won't pull punches in the real world. In order to make sure that we're learning and not just observing lessons, every AFSC or functional team has been required to provide detailed, well-planned training objectives. Every training objective will be matched with an OCT, an observer, coach, trainer, from that mission set. These hand-selected experts from their field will receive training and standardization prior to the exercise from the 34th Combat Training Squadron, and also assessment support from AMC A9. The OCTs will play a key role in MG21, not only to capture truth data and record lessons learned, but also as leads for a deliberate debrief process that will occur following each sortie, vol, and phase. Most importantly, the OCTs and debrief lead from the 34 CTS will provide a weapons school quality debrief for all exercise participants on the down day following the exercise. Additionally, as in past years, personnel from the 34 CTS, AMC A37, and AMC A9 will collaborate in order to capture, analyze, document, and action lessons learned for future growth. Slide, please. Another change for MG21 is the venue. While MG17 and 19 were hosted primarily on the West Coast, MG21 will take advantage of some unique training environments in the Midwest. The exercise will be hosted primarily at the Volk and Alpena Combat Readiness Training Centers, along with Oscoda-Wordsmith Regional Airport in Michigan. Additionally, using these locations will allow access to the associated airspace complexes, ranges, training areas, and numerous other drop zones, dirt landing zones, air refueling tracks, and numerous other civilian and military airfields in a multi-state training area. Participating forces will be spread out among a variety of locations, challenging our ability to project the joint force via contingency response airbase opening, using distributed mission planning, and experimenting with adaptive operations in a contested environment. This geographic environment, paired with an adversary who will degrade our C4, will force experimentation with both technological and doctrinal solutions. As we draw on historical examples, recent weapons and tactics missionary working group topics, the recent Joint All-Domain Operations Doctrine Conference, and ongoing conversations in the joint community, Mobility Guardian will provide opportunity for experimentation in mission command concepts such as mission type orders and conditions-based authorities. Slide, please. From a material perspective, spreading out mobility, CAF, and joint forces across a constantly shifting network of facilities will also provide an opportunity to implement new technologies or to use old tools in new ways as we seek to accelerate development of AMC's capabilities in terms of a joint all-domain command and control. In some instances, this will mean using existing data links in new ways or on new aircraft, which are key objectives for MG21 as we work to train link natives. In some instances, that will mean that we push our AE teams, ground crews, and comm specialists to sharpen their skills and work in concert with Blue aircrew performing on-call airdrop while relying on fighter escort and Blue air to provide close air support and defense in terms of protecting from red air, all elements of MG21. In other instances, it will mean integrating cyber mission defense teams in new ways to find the best effect or coordinating fires between HIMARS, strike aircraft, and C-17 airdropping palletized munitions. These are all TTPs will no doubt challenge our teams. Or it could mean that we employ aircraft like the KC-46 not only in traditional tanker roles, but also demonstrating how it can leverage their abilities as sensor and information nodes. Along those lines, Lieutenant Colonel Hilferty from A8X joins us today to talk about how MG21 fits into AMC's JADC2 campaign plan and how the exercise offers some unique opportunities for experimentation.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Thompson. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Dan Hilferty, Chief, AMC Future Capabilities Development. As such, I've directed the Mobility Air Force Campaign of Experimentation, charged with exploration of foundational technology to support future operating concepts with a joint all-domain command and control. This campaign has demonstrated the capabilities that we can mold now to increase MAF's ability to operate in a contested environment and better enable the convergence of joint effects. Mobility Guardian 21 is a unique opportunity to demonstrate the power of a maximally connected MAF force. So the National Defense Strategy in 2018 identified the emergence of great power competition as an emerging threat that we need to counter. This strategy set forth that we need to explore new operating concepts to better counter this threat. When we look at Annex 3-1, which is now Annex 3-99 of the LeMay Center, it defines joint all-domain operations, one of the concepts that we use to counter this emerging threat. All-domain is defined as air, land, maritime, cyberspace, space, plus EMS, the electromagnetic spectrum. Actions by the joint force in multiple domains integrated in planning and synchronized in execution. For joint all-domain operations, it's defined in Annex 3-99, which the LeMay Center has released. As a future operating concept, Joint All-Domain Command and Control supports JADO, and it's the art and science of decision-making to rapidly translate decisions into action, leverage capabilities across all domains. This is not something you're going to see as a tag on the side of an aircraft as JADC2 inside. It is a joint warfighting construct that provides 4 key capabilities: to sense in all domains, to gather data, translate that data into understanding, share that understanding, and to converge joint effects through all domains in real time. In order to enable this joint warfighting construct, we have a technology engine known as the Advanced Battle Management System inside the Air Force that powers JADC2. Next slide. So ABMS and JADC2 are different. ABMS is the foundation, the digital network environment that's required for the joint warfighting construct that is JADC2. When we're experimenting in this foundational layer to enable the effects of JADC2. So looking at Mobility Guardian 21, we're going to enable that joint warfighting construct by establishing the technology, the digital network environment that enables our MAF forces. Next slide. Annex 3-1, now Annex 3-99, defines the Air Force role in joint all-domain operations. It sets forth several principles, of which primarily the campaign of experimentation is focusing on the sharing of information. This principle gives us 2 key things: decision quality information, and allows us to create dilemmas for an adversary. The JADC2 imperative was laid out by former Chief of Staff General Goldfein in November 2019. What he charged us to do is close thousands of kill chains in hundreds of hours. As we look at this as the pointy end of the spear and understand the support that Mobility Air Forces needs to provide, we look at the logistics chain and the idea that we need to close thousands of logistics chains in hundreds of hours. That as the kill chain is connecting sensors to shooters, the logistics chain is connecting that logistics requirement to the asset that is able to fulfill that requirement to enable the kill chain. The Advanced Battle Management System is the technology that underlines it. With many of the technologies that we know today, things like a mesh network, shared all-domain situational awareness, things that enable mission type orders and that allow us to operate in a denied, disconnected, intermittent, and low bandwidth environment. To be able to operate in a missions controlled environment and flatten and decentralize our command and control organizations. What this allows us to do is to enable commanders and warfighters to rapidly translate decisions into actions. We are able to do this rapidly to create those dilemmas and converge effects on our adversary. Next slide. In order to understand the way we are doing this in the campaign of experimentation, is we're looking at those 4 capabilities that we're providing the joint force and breaking it down into each of the pieces, the building blocks that are foundational to it. The idea that you need to sense, collect that data, compile it in a location such as the cloud, use machines to infer on it, create a common operational picture, share that common operational picture so that commanders can decide at echelon and deliver those effects in a joint way. As we go forward, this is the framework that we're looking at how we experiment. Primarily, those experiments have all focused on the right side, the common operational picture, the decide, the deliver part of this decision advantage framework. So, for example, one of the ways that we've done this in the past is in the Joint Forcible Entry Vol 20 Alpha, which occurred in June. The JFE is a capstone mission for the weapons school, where mobility forces across the country converge to execute a joint forcible entry to deliver a force at a time and place of our choosing, in this case in the Nellis Test and Training Range. What we did is we took existing tactical data link capabilities that were traditionally used to empower senior leaders and our joint partners, in this case a Viasat connection via the FISA antenna and the C-17, the fixed installation satellite antenna. This tactical data link was then adapted so that we could provide a high bandwidth connection to the dynamic retasking capability inside the C-17, the existing data link. So we took what was a high bandwidth, low latency connection, a 10 megabits per second connection, and replaced the existing 2.4 kilobits per second connection with this one. So giving them 5,000 times the amount of bandwidth. As one participant stated, 8-time participant in this exercise, he said it was an unprecedented level of situational awareness. But we didn't just feed that information to 2 aircraft, one in Charleston, one in McCord, and allow them to see the scenario develop throughout the entire vol from those locations they transited. We also enabled that information to be pushed out to the other aircraft in the formation, now creating a common operational picture between all 10 C-17s that participated in this JFE vol. As we go forward, we didn't support just the JFE-20. We're also embedded in advanced battle management systems. The ABMS Onramp number 2 looked at not only how do we provide that situational awareness, that common operational picture to the MAF, but also can we use it for our joint partners? Can we enable an end-to-end access to all domains so that we can give them, so we can mitigate the challenges that we have to accessing key terrain around the world. In this case, we took a HIMARS, a high mobility artillery rocket system, flew it in a C-17, and connected it back to its operations center in Nellis, in transit to a simulated airfield in Nellis. The entire way, they were able to receive updates on their target set and inform the crew as to what the common operational picture is. So now a Marine Corps HIMARS in the back was able to be dynamically retargeted. The crew understand the operational picture, and when they delivered, they're able to converge effects and strike the target with a machine-to-machine delivery of that information. So we are now starting to close that kill chain even faster and be an enabler of that as the Mobility Air Forces. Going forward, we're not only looking to do this for air and partners that we're delivering, but also our operations centers. So delivering that capability at echelon. Next slide. So look at the December 20 Battalion Mass TAC Week. The plan here is to take that same information from an air gateway and now pipe it back to the 43rd Air Mobility Operations Group Battle Lab so that they have the same situational awareness that an airborne mission commander has in the C-17 and the ground forces commander has. We're now sharing that common operational picture across the joint force. Next slide. So, as we look at Mobility Guardian 21, how does this campaign of experimentation support MG21? Well, we're going to orient and train mobility airmen on the tools that we've developed for our common operational pictures. This is not the traditional data links, and we're not taking A3T's job. What we are doing here is we are taking these high bandwidth data links and teaching airmen how to incorporate it into the fight, what they do with a high bandwidth connection, and how this changes the way they operate so that we can enable that decisive air power. Additionally, we're looking at tactical data link technologies that we can use now to maximally connect that MAF force. We're trying to create those tactical data link natives. So what can we do today to connect aircraft that have not traditionally been connected? And is there ways with the technologies that we have now that we can give them at least a subset of the technology that they need in the future? We're also going to leverage the lessons learned. In Mobility Guardian 21, we will have the same 2 C-17s with a high bandwidth connection. They will create air gateways, which are unprecedented in these exercises. The way we manage and integrate into that force is going to have to be an active participation. So developing the contract so that crews understand how to employ those data links and how to fit into the common operational picture and how they deliver all domain effects is important to the way we design this exercise. So we'll be informing that tactical data link architecture as well as the TTPs. So with a maximally connected force with airmen that have access to a high bandwidth data link, the way we're designing Mobility Guardian 21 experiment is looking at agile logistics. Now, the idea that you can have that agile combat employment, that small remote location, that we're agilely supporting a CAF asset and identifies a requirement. Is it a preferred munition, a maintenance part, something essential to the operation, is able to elevate that in priority into a common operational picture. So across echelons, we understand that a requirement exists. We're able to use in-transit visibility to prioritize and retask an asset in air in order to fulfill that requirement, so that we're now shrinking that time to complete a logistics chain, being able to execute the thousands of logistics chains in hundreds of hours. Additionally, MAF aircraft have traditionally been able to employ dynamically because of prudent planning. Advanced planning has allowed us to support more objective areas. With a high bandwidth, low latency connection, we can now provide that mission support even during execution, allowing us to agilely support our logistics supply chains. Finally, we'll enable direct coordination between the aircraft that's retasked and the base, the CR element that is supporting that requirement. So at echelon now, they can make decisions about the operation and translate that decision into action at the right level. So this will prove out our hypothesis that our tactical data link investments are essential and integral part of agile logistics. That JREAP-C, that high bandwidth connection, will allow will mitigate a lot of the challenges we have to dynamic retasking. And that the tactical data link and resilient beyond line of sight communications for a CR will enable agile logistics. And we'll also identify some of the gaps, whether it's our ability to execute in-transit visibility and understand where we need to experiment with next in order to continue to push forward the MAF support to JADC2. I'm looking forward to this opportunity to support a flagship mobility, to support AMC's flagship mobility exercise. I think this is a great opportunity for us to demonstrate the way the MAF of the future can operate.
Thanks, Glaze. The goals encompassed by AMC's JADC2 campaign plan are tremendously important if the command and the joint force are going to communicate and coordinate activities and information flow in the future fight. But Competency 2 are only part of what we'll need to dominate the battle space over the next 15 to 20 years. If the U.S. military and its coalition partners are to be successful, we have to be increasingly agile. That means that both kinetic effects and the logistics and mobility lines that support them have to move at the speed of war. Otherwise, kinetic capabilities that outpace their sustainment networks will only fail more quickly. And so MG-21 will force our airmen to become lighter and leaner, ensuring logistics under attack and considering how AMC fits into concepts like agile combat employment. Integrating with 4th and 5th generation fighters during air operations and joint fires like HIMARS on the ground are key desired learning objectives for MG-21. Mobility airmen must become more adept at planning, working, and flying alongside the CAF, supporting SEAL teams, and understanding how to sustain Army units, to give a few examples. Mobility Guardian will give these opportunities. But it's not just about how we occupy and deconflict the same battle space. It's about how the mobility air forces can rapidly project, reposition, and sustain the joint force, even on short notice. Mobility airmen will be pushed to employ as multi-capable airmen at austere fields in MG-21, leaning down their usual equipment packages and deploying forward to several contingency locations in the exercise. Participants will have the opportunity to interact with several CAF partners who have been experimenting with these ideas, sharing ideas and demonstrating several possibilities for the MAF participation in ACE operations. This will range from specialized fueling operations and support to supportive fighter integrated combat turns to rapid retasking of sorties. We're going to see how much we can pare down force packages and use historical data to still maintain an acceptable level of risk. Ultimately, Mobility Guardian 21 is about deterrence. The exercise is focused on preparing our airmen so that they're ready for any environment and any challenge they could reasonably face. By accelerating change and honing our skills, we deter any adversary who might otherwise think that mobility is the weak link in the Joint Forces armor. And we ensure that the force is ready to dominate any threats that might arise. As we wrap up this presentation and move to Q&A, I'd like to ask not only for your questions, but also for your inputs. What are we missing? What should we be trying out, focusing on, or otherwise doing to challenge our airmen? War is a learning contest, and you can't win unless you learn faster than your adversary. We need your help to make sure we're focused on learning the right lessons. Thank you again for joining us, and I look forward to your ideas.
What a truly great presentation. And now we'll be transitioning to the audience questions and answers. It's my pleasure to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Brian Thomason, the Exercise Director for Mobility Guardian on the AMC staff, and Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Hilferty, Chief of Capabilities Development for AMC A8. All right, gentlemen, can you hear me?
We've got you loud and clear.
All righty, so we've got several really interesting questions here, and the first one I'd like to give you, and I'll apologize in advance if I butcher some of the acronyms because it just happens sometimes. How will the 618th AOC be integrated in testing, or will this be executed locally with a TF?
So the 618th will be integral to our JADC2 efforts that are supporting Mobility Guardian 21. The 618th JIC is fully embedded in the Mobility Guardian 21 planning team, and we are working with them to integrate the multiple tactical data links and gateways that will be supporting the exercise. They are an essential part of this operation.
All right, excellent answer. And related to that, Major Craig Husby asked, with the addition of CAF platforms, will the 621st AMOS be manned with CAF personnel to simulate the COD and CPD positions they were unable to fill during Mobility Guardian 19?
Yep, great question. We're still working through finalizing commitments from different units to participate, but our goal is indeed to have a complete AOC with all of those other elements. So supplementing the 621st AMOS with some reserve and other components that can flesh out the rest of the AOC is one of our goals.
Excellent. And related to that, in addition to the CAF and joint environment, will Special Operations Forces be included as well, given the focus on distributed ops and contested environments?
Right now we've got STS and CCT teams planned to participate. We're also working on some Navy special warfare teams. Again, waiting on final commitments from those units based on their operational training schedule, based on some other factors that are involved. But our goal is to have those elements embedded in the exercise so that we get realistic training for everybody to participate.
Outstanding. Another question that, changing the subject completely, Northcom's requested that CRTCs support COVID-19 ROM starting this fall. If so, is there a go-no-go time point, and if so, when might it be?
You bet. So COVID planning is obviously a very present concern for us, both during the planning process and as we think about what execution will look like. The CRTCs have adjusted their bed down plans to accommodate COVID precautions. So we're looking at what kind of restraints we'll be under in terms of the organic bedding at the CRTCs and in the surrounding area, and how we can right size our participant force to meet both the objectives for Mobility Guardian and the COVID constraints they'll be operating under at the time. Specifically regarding the CRTCs as ROM locations, that's something we're aware of in our tracking. The indication that we've received is that the selection of the CRTC as a ROM location will be deconflicted from the planned exercise schedule. We hope that is true, but we're preparing for worst case or even short notice changes to bed down availability. And so we're looking at some austere bed down options, the DERBS, the disaster relief bed down system, as well as other options so that we have the ability to execute Mobility Guardian to the maximum extent, regardless of the environmental factors. That being said, we do have a COVID go, no go decision point after our final planning conference. We'll be presenting AMC leadership with a menu of options ranging from full Mobility Guardian to nothing at all, and then several options in between, so that as factors change and we get closer to the exercise, we can tailor that for specific conditions. And so line haul of items to Mobility Guardian, financial commitments and contracts, a lot of other factors feed into those decisions, but it'll be several decision points moving from the FBC forward to adjust to make sure that we're ready to go.
All righty, and this one I may not exactly ask correctly, so work with me. Do you see the potential for MAF platforms serving a role as provider or relay node in a mesh network or host for cloud architecture beyond the platform's role as a consumer of other sensor info?
Absolutely. I think this is a great question, and it's exactly what we're trying to tease out with the MAF JADC2 campaign of experimentation. In the experiment that we did back in June with supporting Joint Forcible Entry 20 Alpha, we used that C17 beyond line of sight data link to project out, to forward out that high bandwidth, low latency connection across the architecture for the formation. We're going to repeat that in 20 Bravo. We plan on doing it at least twice in Mobility Guardian 21 with 2 different assets. And we're looking to see which other assets we can continue to do this with to show the utility of a MAP aircraft that can support the end user throughout all domains. So not just mitigate those challenges to key access, but also support them through the entire transit.
All righty, another question coming in from Major Mike Elliott, asking, has the size and manning of the 34th CTS been changed to support the new scope and objectives of Mobility Guardian 21?
So this is one I'll take. I was the ops officer at the 34th Combat Training Squadron 2 years ago as we are looking to prepare for Mobility Guardian 19. And we did plus up the manning, added civilian positions to the squadron in order to support Mobility Guardian 19. And those are now fully in place from Mobility Guardian 21.
Additionally, I'll say, this is a team effort, whether it's the folks at the 34th CTS, whether it's the A37 folks here at Scott Air Force Base, and across the entire AMC staff. It's not just those 2 entities, but we're certainly reliant and benefit from the expertise that comes from all of the directors here at the staff, and then from SMEs who act as our planners across the mobility air forces. So, for instance, we've got CR planners that are participating from Travis Air Force Base and from McGuire, Dix Lake, Hurst. We've got LNOs from across the MAF and CAF, and so I think we're relying on the whole team to make this happen. But do definitely benefit from the plus up at the 34th.
All righty, and back to a command and control question that I think is very relevant. With the dynamic retasking ability being brought online and experimented, will AWACS or CRC playing in the exercise be given take-on of MAF assets in the air? And how will retasking be coordinated with the AOC?
So this is definitely central to JADC2, and it's that conditions-based authority. So I'd say this squarely bridges what we're both doing this exercise. Whereas I'm providing the connectivity to do it, the exercise of that function, a part of the experiment is showing that you can retask at echelon. The idea that if you can push that common operational picture out, not just keep it at the AOC, but also across the entire force, that now that you can push down decision-making authority to each echelon, so you get the same quality of decisions at each level. Now, in terms of how we incorporate the exercise, that is something that we're continually talking about and evolving to understand how the MAF will operate in the future. And I'd say this is an active conversation that's being informed heavily by what we saw out of WebTAC. So both the mission type order MOG and the tactical data link MOG are helping to shape the way we do this Mobility Guardian 21. So yes, ultimately the objective would be to give more of that tactical control to a CRC, but we're still working at how that will look in Mobility Guardian 21.
I think that's one of the exciting things about this exercise and this scenario in particular, is that it's an evolving conversation, and we're able to jump in and be part of that conversation and also experiment with different possible solutions. And so we take the WebTAC MOG topics as we build ComRels and have the discussions about what that structure should look like as the JADO conference that we mentioned wraps up. We're taking all of those inputs and trying out different solutions. And so there will be things that we learn that work well. There'll be things that we try that maybe don't work, and we learn from that also. Some of those solutions and opportunities will be presented by the planning staff, and because of the structure of the exercise will be given to the participants in advance. Some of those will be problem sets that they have to manage and experiment through during the exercise itself. And both those things will present some unique training opportunities. So definitely an evolving conversation. I don't know that we have a final answer or even will after Mobility Guardian 21, but I think this will be one step in that conversation as a joint force to solve those problems.
All righty. Another question. What lessons learned did you bring from Mobility Guardian 19 into Mobility Guardian 21?
Good question. So the preceding planners from MG19 have looked at a lot of the lessons learned, cooperated with AMCA 9, and have kind of culled through those. And we took that as we transitioned from one planning staff to the other. And the size and the scope of the exercise were the first step in adjusting from 19 to 21 to get after some of the problems or some of the things that we couldn't try out during the previous iterations of the exercise. So I think starting out, just the scope and the direction of MG21 reflects the lessons learned from those previous and adjusts. I won't go into a whole lot of detail on every single lesson learned, obviously, that we've analyzed, but we as a team sorted and culled through those lessons learned to try to bend them and find common threads, common solutions, things that had been actioned already, or things that we could work on during MG21. Some of those will be surprises for actual execution and for the problem sets that we're going to present to the participants. Some of those are the things we've described already. So maybe not a super specific question, but definitely has been a lot of analysis of those previous lessons learned and taking those into consideration so that we're actually actioning them and not just observing the same lessons over and over again.
All righty. Here's a question. Here's a question that I believe has come to us from industry, and that is, do you have any specific technologies in mind already, or is there a point at which you need to make a decision about incorporating new systems, data links, or other advanced capabilities?
I'll let Glaze talk to the data link and portion. I've got a couple thoughts on some other technologies that we're interested in.
So what we're seeing right now is that IP-based technology gives us the most flexibility. So a lot of the experiments that we've done with the JREAP-C, that extension of the J-series protocol over IP, internet-based protocol, has a lot of flexibility. So when we look at different satellite-based internet applications, such as Viasat, which is one we've used. We see Inmarsat in some, but what we see also emerging is Starlink. So a lot of different technologies, and I expect that in the coming years, we're going to see the cost curve on this start to change. So right now it's a very expensive technology to be able to use that satellite internet, but with the proliferation of satellite broadband, I expect that this will change the way we connect the aircraft. Now, regardless of which company we use and which system we use, the one common link through them all has been that IP-based connection. So the idea that as long as we can get onto some sort of internet, we're able to connect the rest of our assets. That makes it a fundamental technology. And we can see this whether it's a CR at a forward location operating an ACE field, whether it's a KC-135 that will have operating on the forward edge of the battle space that we want to use as a relay. Each one of these, we find that as long as we can connect it, then all the other technologies flow from that. From there, we're also looking at what devices do we want to display, and then what type of services do we want to provide as a MAF. So when you decide to use an AMC asset, what are we going to provide to the user? Are we just going to give them a connection so that they can get online, whether it's SIP or NIPR, or is there other services that we'll be providing as well? So as we look at the technologies, that's kind of where we're looking. I'm not focusing on one particular way to connect. I'm trying to find multiple ways to do the same thing, because that ability to have redundant data links and to naturally degrade from a high bandwidth, low latency connection to something that may be low bandwidth, high latency, something like a JREAP-A protocol using the UHF SATCOM satellites, or use line of sight as necessary, is absolutely required for our force to be resilient in the future battle space.
Thanks, I think from my perspective, this gets at the heart of a question that was asked to Major VG yesterday during his MCA seminar. He brought up the point that as we try to lean down our force packages and our UGCs so that we can be more agile, we have to have not only multi-capable airmen, but multi-capable equipment and tools. And so if we're going to be able to move rapidly between main operating base to a FOB to a contingency location, we have to have things that are going to fit in smaller and smaller packages and can do multiple tasks. That's something we're looking at for the exercise. How can we use our traditional tools and our existing capabilities in new ways? Because of the acquisition timelines that we're looking at in the planning horizon for MG21, we can't bring on a whole lot of new tools beyond what we've already looked at. But we are looking to, for example, the Navy and the Marine Corps, how they move weapons or how they do mission generation type tasks, and seeing if there's any elements that we can incorporate into MG21 that have already been tested, that have already been proven. So we're working through some of those ideas. We've got to balance the need to be innovative and change between now and in May with the shorter and shortening timeline that we're on to plan. But we're still innovating and still coming up with new ideas and tweaking the scenario to accommodate some of those different ideas.
Alrighty, I think this is going to end up being our last question, gentlemen, and that is, with both the 16th AOC, which is the real world AOC, and the 621st AMOS, which will be the exercise AOC, integrating as C2 entities and Mobility Guard M21, where will the OPCON of assets actually lie?
Great question. That's one we're still working through, to be honest, as we build the COMRELs and as we're adjusting. I think you may see some opportunity to exercise non-traditional authorities. This was, again, something that came out of the JADO conference about 2 weeks ago. We've got our existing and our traditional command relationships and authorities that we're used to exercising, and we want to familiarize our participants with those things that they might encounter in a deployed environment. But we also want to experiment with some new concepts, some new authorities, some new organizational structures. And so I think you'll see a mix of both those ideas at MG21, both using the old, seeing what we can accommodate into the scenario and what we can use that's been proven over time, and then testing out some new ideas. So I won't give you an exact specific answer on where that OPCON will lie, but just know that it will look familiar, but modified from previous structures.
Alrighty, well, thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Thomason and Lieutenant Colonel Hilferty, for joining us today and answering our questions. We really enjoyed your presentation, and you gentlemen did an outstanding job. Do you have any final comments or any final comments?
Just want to say thank you all for joining us today. Again, keep sending those questions and those ideas our way. This is a team effort, not just for planning this exercise, but for moving the capabilities of the MAF Joint Force forward. And so we're going to have to continue to think and work together as we experiment and as we learn and try new things.
All right. Appreciate this opportunity to speak. And any mobility airmen out there that are interested to learn more about the MAF JAD C2 campaign of experimentation can hit me up on the global. I'm glad to talk about it further and talk about where I see the technologies going and how you can help me involved with this today. So thank you all.
All right, well, this concludes Seminar 7. Don't forget to stay connected for just a few more seconds to get your crossword puzzler word.
The views expressed in this presentation are those of the speaker and do not reflect the official policy or position of the United States Air Force, the Department of Defense, the United States government, or the Airlift Tanker Association. If you are not an ATA member, please consider joining at https://atalink.org/become a member. Thank you for participating in our virtual presentation. Please close this window and return to the agenda on our website to view another presentation. Your crossword puzzler word is Raven.